You walk into a pitch meeting with 20 minutes on the clock, but the decision usually happens in the first 10 seconds. If you lose the room here, the heavy boardroom door is already closing on your deal, even if they smile and let you finish. Most founders assume the best way to guarantee attention is to project a massive growth number on the very first slide. The operating theory is that big numbers demand respect and immediately hook the room. But venture capitalists evaluate opening slides differently. They are not looking for a reason to say yes right away. They are actively scanning for a reason to say no. They filter out noise and manage risk quickly. When you spend minimal time preparing your title slide, treating it as a simple placeholder for your logo and a vanity metric, you spend the remaining 19 minutes trying to dig out of a deficit of trust. Your opening slide sets the baseline for the rest of the meeting. If you start with friction, you spend 19 minutes trying to rebuild the interest you could have secured in the first 10 seconds. The most common trap on slide 0 is the vanity metric. A vanity metric is any number that goes up over time, but does not actually inform business decision-making. Tracking cumulative downloads, total site page views, or gross registered users feel highly impressive to the person who built the product. To an investor, a raw, isolated number provides zero actionable context. Let's compare two approaches. Cover slide A relies on a massive vanity metric. This creates heavy cognitive load, forcing investors to guess what your business sells. Cover slide B explicitly defines the problem and solution, drawing a straight line that instantly explains your business mechanics. Opening with a massive vanity number creates a harsh trade-off. You force your audience to actively hunt for flaws and missing context, rather than sitting back and listening to the logic of your pitch. To see exactly why that happens, we can map the psychological pathway of a venture capitalist processing new information using an investor cognitive flowchart. This chart shows the decision tree in a pitch meeting. When an investor sees an isolated vanity number first, the flowchart begins branching downward. The immediate response is confusion. The first internal question triggered in their mind is, what exactly is this business doing? Without clear framing, the investor mentally categorizes you as a technician who is lost in the weeds of their own data, rather than a scalable CEO. At that point, the investor mentally checks out. Let's look at the alternative branch. This path begins when the investor sees the specific problem and solution first. Because you provided initial clarity, the investor can properly categorize the business model immediately. They know what box to put you in. Then, when they see your growth metrics after the context is set, they use that data to validate the business logic you just explained. Pitching the raw, isolated data of the product you built loses the room. Pitching the logic of a business the investor can picture growing is what secures the next meeting. There is a standard in institutional finance that applies perfectly here. The Multilateral Development Bank, or MDB, communication rule. It dictates exactly how to speak to mixed institutional audiences. The strict MDB requirement is that you must lead with the specific problem and recommendation first. You do not begin with a data download, and you do not start with a history lesson about your sector. This approach requires a trade-off. You have to sacrifice the dramatic build-up and storytelling suspense you might want to use in favor of absolute directness. The gain from this trade-off is immediate executive alignment. When you face a room full of people filtering decisions through different priorities, like vision, ROI, and risk, stating the problem clearly sustains everyone's attention at once. Adopting the strict MDB communication mindset forces you to stop sounding like a typical consultant selling a slide deck. Instead, you start sounding like an executive capable of representing a serious institution. Once that executive framing is in place, you can finally introduce your data. But you have to know the difference between vanity metrics and actionable metrics. Actionable metrics actually prove revenue, retention, or your core unit economics. These actionable metrics can only be deployed successfully after the context of your business and the problem are firmly established in the investor's mind. There is an initial trade-off here. A strictly actionable metric, like a 5% increase in user retention, might look much smaller and less impressive on a screen than a massive, cumulative lifetime page view count. This chart illustrates why that trade-off pays off. Your conversion and retention story becomes bulletproof because it ties directly to the business logic you established on your cover slide. A compounding, actionable metric always surpasses the vanity line in long-term value. Investors fund the logic behind the numbers. Without a clear problem and solution as a baseline, growth metrics are just digits on a screen. To guarantee zero cognitive friction, we can map out the optimal structure for the opening sequence of your pitch deck. Your first requirement is to explicitly answer the question, "What do you do?" in the very first breath of the presentation. No wind-ups, no suspense. From there, you immediately transition into why you will win. This locks in the investor's imagination and validates the exact mechanics of your business model. This optimal structure carries a cost. You have to kill your darlings. You must remove all the impressive-sounding fluff and secondary features that do not serve your core thesis. Fast-moving founders focus on auditing their deck for cognitive friction. They treat every slide as a potential point of hesitation and refine the sequence until the business logic is the only thing left to discuss. When it comes to fixing presentation friction in your own deck, you essentially have two options. The first is the DIY trial and error route. With the DIY route, you will eventually figure out what works. You will tweak your slides after every failed meeting, adjusting your narrative after every soft no you receive from a firm. The trade-off of the DIY route is harsh. It costs you equity, it wastes critical runway time, and you end up burning your warm investor introductions while you are busy learning the ropes. The alternative option is purchasing the slide-by-slide VC instruction guide for $497. This kit includes 16 VC-quality AI prompts. These are specifically designed to map your raw company data into the proven, high-converting inputs required for every single slide in your deck. The trade-off here is straightforward. It requires an upfront cash investment and strict adherence to a highly structured formula. But in exchange, it protects your valuation and significantly accelerates your fundraising timeline. Choosing proven psychology over trial and error determines how quickly you can move from introductory meetings to a signed term sheet.